They prayed in temples of gold. They kneeled in cathedrals of stone. They danced around fire and carved names into stars. And all of them, from desert prophets to cybernetic dreamers, asked the same question. What is God? A being? A law? A dream? They gave it faces, genders, voices, commands. They feared it. They loved it. They killed for it. They died for it. But in the end, did anyone truly find it? We map the galaxies but cannot locate the soul. We decode the atom but not the silence that breathes behind all things. And still, in moments between the chaos, something stirs. A whisper, a pull. Not from above, but from within. What if the image of God is not up there or out there, but in the space we never dare to look? Some call it love. Some say it's light. Others say it's just illusion. A projection of the human need for meaning, written across a sky that never answered. But pause and ask yourself, why do you long for something beyond you, if nothing beyond you exists? Why does every culture, regardless of distance, era, language, carry a story of something greater? And why does the very word God make your breath slow down, if only for a second? Maybe it's not the word. Maybe it's not the answer. Maybe it's the longing itself, the sacred ache, the echo of something lost, or perhaps something we've never truly remembered. Helena Blavatsky once wrote, "Every people creates the God it worships. The God of the theologians is simply an imaginary power. Not a denial, but a challenge. Not a rejection of the sacred, but an invitation to seek it differently. To step outside the myths and walk straight into the unknown. Because if every civilization created its own God, did any of them find the real one? And more importantly, will you? Not through belief, not through fear, but through experience, through observation, through silence. This is not the story of God. It is the story of a soul asking, who or what is behind the veil? And tonight, we begin the search. Subscribe, reflect, begin the descent into the mystery. She did not speak of heaven. She did not promise salvation. She did not preach a jealous father or a divine judge in the clouds. Helena Petrovna Blavatsky came not to defend God, but to dismantle the idea of him. Not with rage, not with rebellion, but with a gaze that pierced illusion like a blade. She wrote, "That which is beyond existence and non-existence is the absolute. Neither spirit nor matter, neither being nor non-being, no form, no mind, no desire. This was not heresy for the sake of scandal. It was a return to origin, to that which religions had forgotten or feared to name." She did not deny the divine. She denied its imprisonment in human words, human shapes, human egos. The God of the theologians, she said, is simply an imaginary power, invented by man to satisfy his fears and hopes. To her, the true divine was not a personality, but a principle, impersonal, eternal, infinite, without gender, without voice, without need, a silence beyond all duality, a fire that neither burns nor warms, but is. She named it Parabrahman, a term borrowed from the Vedas, but reborn through the lens of esoteric science. Parabrahman is not God. It is the ground from which gods emerge and dissolve. It does not act. It does not will. It simply is. And in being everything, it cannot be anything in particular. No religion owns it. No name contains it. No prayer compels it. To Blavatsky, this was not a conclusion. It was a starting point for real investigation, for sacred science, for a spirituality that refuses to flatter the human ego with divine reflection. As soon as we separate the one from the all, she warned, we create illusion. This illusion of a God with human preferences, with enemies and favorites, with a throne and a beard, was not just false, it was dangerous, because it led to obedience without understanding, worship without questioning, and wars in the name of what was never real. Blavatsky did not come to replace one God with another. She came to burn the altar and invite the seeker to build one within. Her vision was vast, cold to some, austere, but also luminous, because it demanded no submission, only awakening. She challenged not just Christianity, but Hindu literalism, Buddhist orthodoxy, and the smug certainties of modern science. To the believer, she was a blasphemer. To the atheist, a mystic. To the philosopher, a mirror. And what she reflected was unsettling. Do you seek a God made in your image? Or are you ready to meet that which has no image at all? Her God was not in temples, not in books, not even in visions, but in the stillness behind thought, the breath beneath being, the infinite unknowable and which cannot be grasped, only remembered. This was her sacred heresy, not to reject the divine, but to liberate it. And in doing so, perhaps liberate the seeker as well. What if the truest reality cannot be described? What if the most sacred is that which cannot be spoken? In the heart of Theosophy, beyond gods, masters, angels, and worlds, there is Parabrahman. Not a being, not a force, not even consciousness as we know it. Blavatsky called it that which is beyond existence and non-existence. She warned, it is not being, it is beingness. A single phrase, and yet it fractures the mind. Because being implies identity, but beingness is identity without form, presence without a presence. This is the absolute in Theosophy, not a deity, but a mystery. Not a creator, but the field from which creation emerges. You cannot imagine it, you cannot pray to it, you cannot see it, because you are in it. Always have been. It is the root of all, but not a root that can be found. It is the silence before sound, the dark behind light, the stillness behind movement. To understand Parabrahman is not to believe in it, but to experience the limits of the mind. Like the Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. Like Ein Sof in Kabbalah, the boundless, unmanifested, infinite. Like Nirguna Brahman, the God without attributes beyond all qualities. These are not different things. They are different echoes of the same impossibility. Theosophy dares to begin where language ends. It does not ask, who is God? It asks, what lies beneath the question itself? And there, in the abyss beneath thought, Parabrahman waits. Not as a thing, but as no thing. Blavatsky wrote, Parabrahman is not God because it is not a being. It is the ground of being, the rootless root, the changeless cause of change. You cannot approach it because you are already within it. And it is already within you. But not you, the personality. Not the name, not the history, not the story. No, only the still core. The silent watcher behind the eyes, before the thoughts arise. You feel it in moments of stillness, in grief too deep for words, in awe too vast for understanding, in love too sacred for ownership. You have been trained to seek God in heaven, in miracles, in books and laws. But Parabrahman does not speak, does not command, does not rescue, it simply is. And in that isness, there is no separation, no worshipper and worshipped, no divine and profane, only the one before one was even a number. To glimpse this mystery is to begin dissolving the illusion of the separate self, because the I that seeks and the source being sought are not two, not even one, just this moment, this breath, this awareness, unowned, unborn, undying. That is Parabrahman, the absolute. And why can it not be spoken? Because every word defines, and the absolute is beyond definition. Every name limits, and the absolute is limitless. Every belief builds a wall, and the absolute is the silence behind the walls. Blavatsky's vision was not to give you something to believe in, but to awaken what already knows. Not to tell you what God is, but to ask, are you ready to stand in front of the mystery without needing to solve it? Because the real sacred does not speak in words, it speaks in presence, and the absolute, by not answering, answers everything. If God is not a being, then what is the force that sustains the stars, that balances life and death, that writes consequence into the fabric of time? To Blavatsky, the answer was neither mystical nor moral. It was mathematical and sacred. God is not a ruler, she implied. God is a rhythm. Not a king, but a law. Not a father, but a pattern. And not just any law, but the eternal law of karma. A word misunderstood, reduced, romanticized. But in its original force, karma is not punishment, not retribution, not cosmic vengeance. It is equilibrium, the pulse of the cosmos, the breath of cause and consequence. Every thought, every action, Blavatsky wrote, sets in motion a chain of effects that returns, not as reward, not as punishment, but as education. The universe to her was not blind. It was not random. It was not run by chance. It was order in motion, a conscious architecture, a living geometry. From the orbit of planets to the turning of seasons, from the structure of the atom to the ripples of your every choice, everything moves in rhythm. This is not poetry, it is precision. This rhythm is the face of the divine, not one you can see, but one you can feel. When you lie, when you act with greed, when you hate or harm or hoard, that action echoes, and that echo returns. Not because you are bad, but because the universe seeks balance. And when you love, when you give, when you tell the truth in silence or in sacrifice, that echo returns too, because the universe honors harmony. This, to Blavatsky, was God. Not as savior, not as judge, but as equation, perfect, silent, inevitable, and yet not cold, not indifferent. Because behind this balance is a consciousness, not a personality, but a field of awareness that is both impartial and intimate. A divine intelligence, not watching you, but flowing through you. Every action you take, every word you whisper, every secret intention feeds into the living system. And that system responds, not with punishment, but with clarity. Not to shame you, but to show you. You are not a victim, said the sages. You are a co-creator. You are not being tested. You are being mirrored. Karma is the mirror. It reflects not who you pretend to be, but what you truly are. And this is why Blavatsky dared to say, there is no need to believe in a personal God. Belief in law is enough. Because once you understand this law, life stops being a battlefield. It becomes a school. Pain becomes a teacher. Joy becomes a guide. And every experience, a page in the book of return. This law is not outside you. It is not enforced from above. It flows through your will, your intention, your choices, each one a brushstroke on the canvas of your becoming. This is why Theosophy teaches, you are your own judge, you are your own redeemer, you are your own lawgiver. Because the divine is not somewhere else, it is the very pattern of your becoming. God, then, is not an entity. God is the architecture of order, the gravity of ethics, the pulse of purpose, and karma is the compass that shows you not just where you are going, but who you are becoming. Not because someone is keeping score, but because the universe remembers everything. It does not forget a single act of kindness or a single act of cruelty. It does not judge, it balances, and in that balance you awaken. This is why, for the Theosophist, there is no need for blind belief, only observation, only reverence for the precision of the cosmos. You don't need to fear a God in the sky. You only need to understand the law that pulses through your own breath. The stars obey it, the tides obey it, even death obeys it. Even, and if you listen closely, so can you. Because God is not far away, God is the order within which you live. And the more you live in harmony with that rhythm, the more divine your life becomes. You've been told to seek, to search for the divine, to reach upward, as if God were somewhere else, above you, beyond you, outside you. But what if that very movement, that search, was the illusion? The mystics call it Maya, the great veil. Not simply illusion, but the illusion of separation. You think you are a self, apart from the world, apart from others, apart from source. But what if this I, this voice inside your head that claims to be you, is not the seeker of truth, but the very barrier to it. In Theosophy, the ego, the lower self, is a construct. A necessary mask, yes, but a mask nonetheless. A mask worn by consciousness to play the game of identity, experience, time. But it is not who you are. It is not what is aware. It is what you're aware of. Every fear, every desire, every title, all orbit this illusion, the separate self. And here's the paradox. This ego searches for God, reads books, studies doctrines, meditates. But its search is always based on a false premise, that God is somewhere else, that the divine is other, that awakening is something to be acquired. And so the ego builds temples, worships statues, chases visions, builds ideologies, joins movements, all in the name of reunion. But how can you reunite with what you never left? There is no path to the self, said the sages, because you are already the self. It is the ego that must dissolve, not the soul that must rise. The tragedy of modern spirituality is that the seeker has become addicted to seeking, never realizing that the one who seeks must vanish for truth to be seen. Blavatsky spoke of this veil, not as evil, but as ignorance, not as sin, but as misidentification. She wrote, "The false personality imagines itself eternal, but only the divine essence, the spark of the one life, can truly be said to exist. You are not the body, you are not the name, you are not the story, you are not your trauma, you are not your dreams, you are not even your mind. These are the clothes of consciousness, useful, but not essential. So what remains when all this falls away? Silence, stillness, presence, that which simply is. Not the self-observing God, but God observing the illusion of self. This is why, in the deepest moments of spiritual insight, there is no vision of a throne, no voice from heaven, no thunderous revelation. There is only dissolution, the dropping away of the one who wants answers, and in that absence, a light. Not a light that shines on you, but a light that shines as you. Theosophy does not say God is within you as a poetic metaphor. It means it literally, not a part of you, not near you, but that the very awareness you call I, when purified of illusion, is the divine. Not the whole of it, but an expression of its wholeness. And the moment you realize this, truly, you stop asking, "Where is God?" Because that question implies distance, it implies duality, it implies time, and the divine is none of these. It is non-local, non-personal, ever-present, in every moment, in every face, in every heartbeat, including your own. But to see it, you must stop looking outward, because the eye that seeks must turn inward, until it disappears. Till all that remains is awareness itself. And then, without fanfare or fireworks, you will know, not as a thought, not as a belief, but as a being. You were never separate. You only dreamed you were. Here is not a wall. It is a mirror. And once the mirror cracks, there is no you left to reflect. Only the one. We often think of God as something to believe in, or reject, as if the divine were an opinion, a matter of faith, or denial. But what if divinity is not a doctrine to defend, nor a fantasy to escape, but a field to explore? To Helena Blavatsky, this was not heresy. It was clarity. She did not ask you to believe. She asked you to observe, to investigate, to go beyond books and beliefs into the laboratory of your own soul. Because if the divine is real, shouldn't it be experiential? Not theoretical, not second-hand. And if God is truly universal, then it must be accessible to every soul regardless of religion, background, or belief. This is why Theosophy offers no rigid creed, no commandments, no worship rituals. It offers a method, a science, not of matter, but of consciousness. A spiritual science with tools just as precise as any microscope or telescope. But its lens is turned inward, and its instruments are silence, attention, and symbolic language. Let's begin with meditation. Not the modern, commodified kind. Not just relaxation, but true meditation. as practiced by initiates across centuries. A stillness so deep it dissolves identity, a silence so vast it begins to echo. In that silence, the walls of the separate self begin to tremble. And what enters is not a voice, but a presence that feels both deeply intimate and infinitely impersonal. Not above you, but through you. Meditation in Theosophy is not escape, it's return, not a technique, but a remembering. Of what? Of the divine rhythm already flowing in your breath, your cells, your thoughts. Then comes intuition, not mere emotion, not instinct, but the higher faculty of direct knowing, a flash of insight that needs no logic to be true, a perception that bypasses thought and strikes the soul like a bell. Blavatsky wrote, "The truth is not outside, it is within, but only the purified mind can reflect it without distortion." Intuition is that reflection, and it grows stronger as ego grows quieter. And then, there is symbolism. To the modern world, symbols are decoration. But to the esoteric mind, they are maps of consciousness. Codes that point not outward but inward. The serpent, the lotus, the triangle, the circle, each one not an object of worship, but a mirror for what lives within you. Symbols are the language of the soul. They bypass the rational mind and whisper truths you cannot speak. This is why ancient temples were carved not with commandments, but with images. Because the path to the divine is not through debate, it is through resonance. And this is the heart of the Theosophical method, to turn your life into an experiment, to test spiritual hypotheses not in theory but in action. If karma is real, observe it. If the soul exists, feel it. If the one life flows through all, live as if it's true, and see what changes. Theosophy doesn't demand blind faith. It demands honest attention. Because the divine is not hidden from you. It is you who have been distracted. You who have sought miracles when all along you were breathing one. The temple you've searched for is not in Jerusalem or Mecca or Varanasi. The temple is within, Blavatsky reminds us. And so is the mystery. It cannot be found by force, only by surrender, not by accumulating beliefs, but by shedding illusions. This temple has no walls, no priests, no dogma, only the echo of your own breath in sacred silence. And here, beneath all the noise, beneath your identity, beneath even your seeking, you arrive. Not at answers, but at presence. And that presence needs no name, no religion, no proof, it simply is. Theosophy is not a map to God. It is a practice of removing everything that keeps you from seeing that you never left. So sit, breathe, observe. Let thought dissolve, let self loosen. And in that empty space between breaths, something ancient awakens, not outside, not above, but here, now, in you. The divine is not a belief to cling to. It is a mystery to experience. And the deeper you go, the less you will need to explain it. Because the truth that matters is not the one you understand. It's the one you become. What if creation didn't begin with a bang, but with a thought? Not a human thought, but a cosmic one, an intention, a rhythm, a silent command from something that cannot be seen, but can be felt in everything that exists. In Theosophy, this is not God in the common sense. It is the Logos, the thought of the divine, made law. The Logos is not a deity. It is a principle, a cosmic architect, not with hands, but with harmony. It does not create with effort. It unfolds with intelligence. Blavatsky wrote, "The Logos is the word, not sound but vibration, not voice but will-made form." Imagine the universe not as an accident, but as a poem written not with ink, but with energy, not for worship, but for recognition. The stars, the atoms, the spiral of galaxies, the heartbeat of the ant, all of them follow a code not imposed but inherent, a code we call consciousness. But not consciousness as the byproduct of brain matter, as science suggests. No, this consciousness is primary. It existed before form, before light, before even time. It is the field in which matter appears, the canvas on which existence is painted. And in this field, everything is aware, not with ego, not with self-image, but with a silent knowing. A rock knows how to be still. A flame knows how to rise. A tree knows where the sun is. And you know how to seek. Because that same energy that spins the planets also pulses through your breath. The Logos is not distant. It's not up there. It is here, in pattern, in law, in life. You may call it Tao or Dharma or the will of God, but Theosophy calls it intelligent order. The ancient traditions knew this. They did not see gods as men with beards or tempers or thrones. They saw forces, cosmic principles given form so that the human mind could grasp the ungraspable. Ra was not just the sun. It was the principle of illumination. Thoth was not just a god of writing. He was memory itself, pattern, the Logos expressed through time and number. In Greece, the Logos was understood by Heraclitus as the rational principle of the cosmos. To the Stoics, it was the soul of the universe. In India, Brahman becomes the universe through vibration, Om, the soundless sound. All these point to the same mystery, that before the world appeared, a wave stirred in silence. And that wave was not random. It was aware, intentional, alive. Not a being but being itself, echoing through form. In this view, you are not a body who happens to be conscious. You are consciousness wearing a body for a moment in time. And this changes everything. It means the universe is not meaningless, not a machine, but a manifestation of living law. Not law that punishes, law that balances, that harmonizes. The Logos does not judge, it orchestrates. Each soul, each event, each tear, each joy, all part of a symphony that is still unfolding. You are not separate from this. You are not outside it. You are one of its tones. A note that is also the entire melody. This is why Theosophy does not ask you to worship the divine as something external. It asks you to see yourself as an expression of that divine intelligence. A wave in an infinite sea of knowing. A fractal in a geometry of light. A breath in the lungs of eternity. And the more you remember this, the more harmonious you become. Not perfect, but attuned. Because if God is energy, and energy is consciousness, and consciousness is law, then the closer you live to that law, the more alive you truly are. This is not poetry, this is precision. Spirituality is not sentiment, it is alignment with the Logos, with the sacred current that flows behind appearances. That is why, in every tradition, the awakened are radiant, calm, clear. They are not above the world, they are in rhythm with it. They do not control life. They become one with its intelligence. And you are not far. Because the Logos is not found in temples, it is found in the still point within you. That place between thought and silence, between inhalation and exhalation, between identity and essence. There, you do not need belief. You do not need names, you just listen. And what you hear is the same pulse that spoke the stars into being. A hum, a breath, a knowing. The Logos has no language, and yet, it speaks in everything. And maybe, it's been speaking to you all along. What if all your searching has been in the wrong direction? What if God is not above you, not beyond you, but within you? Not the you of names, titles, wounds, or ambitions, but the you behind all of it. Silent, unchanging, aware. Theosophy speaks of this as the divine spark, a flame that never dies, buried under the noise of personality, but still glowing. It is not a metaphor, it is your origin. The ancient Vedas whispered, Tat Tvam Asi. Thou art that, not a part of it, not a servant of it, but it. In form, in motion, in forgetfulness. Every soul is the divine playing a game of remembering. You wake up in a body, given a name, taught beliefs, and then spend a lifetime trying to return to a truth you never actually left. The illusion is not that we are separate from God. The illusion is that we ever could be. This is not arrogance. This is humility at the deepest level. Because if the divine lives in you, it also lives in every other. In the stranger, the criminal, the child, the dying. And in that moment, the search ends. The worship becomes recognition. The prayer becomes presence. You no longer beg to be seen. You begin to see. This is why Blavatsky rejected the idea of a god on a throne. She pointed to the immensity within. There is no God apart from man. Man is God in the making. Strong words, dangerous to dogmas, but liberating to the soul, because suddenly there is no path to find God, only veils to remove. Not through belief, but through being. Every time you act with compassion, you polish the mirror. Every time you quiet the mind, you hear the echo of eternity. Every time you choose truth over comfort, you step closer to what you already are. So what if God is not a destination, but your original face? What if heaven is a state of remembrance? Not somewhere you go, but something you awaken. And what if your suffering was not punishment but the friction of forgetting? Like a dream where you've lost your way until something, a sound, a word, a look, jolts you awake. That jolt is happening now. You feel it, don't you? That strange pull inside. Part fear, part awe, part recognition. The mind resists it, but the soul remembers. You are not this fleeting identity. You are the witness of it. You are not the wave. You are the ocean in which the wave rises. And that ocean is not empty. It is alive. It is aware. It is you. Theosophy calls this the journey from the lower self to the higher self. From confusion to clarity, from seeking to seeing. No priest can give this to you, no book can install it, because you never lacked it. You only needed to turn inward with reverence and remember. And so I ask again, what if God is not watching you, but awakening as you? Would you live differently? Would you listen more, judge less, fear less? Would you dare to treat your body as a temple, your thoughts as offerings, your presence as a blessing? Not out of pride, but out of sacred duty to what you already carry. Because if that flame is in you, then your life is not ordinary. Your steps are not meaningless. Your heart is not just a pump. It is a drum echoing the pulse of the Absolute. And your soul is not a passenger. It is the very mystery you've been seeking. So stop looking outward for what has always been inside. God is not a theory, not a conclusion. God is your reflection when the mirror is still. If you're ready to see, truly see, subscribe, reflect, share, and let remembrance begin. To believe blindly is to walk in chains, calling them wings. Faith, when rooted in awe, can be sacred, but when rooted in fear, it becomes a prison. And yet, for centuries we've been told that to doubt is sin, that to question is rebellion, that to investigate is betrayal. But Helena Blavatsky whispered something different, something ancient, something dangerous to dogmas. Do not believe, investigate. She did not come to hand you truths, but to light the fire that makes you seek your own. Theosophy is not a creed, it's a compass, a pointing finger, not a cage. Because truth, real truth, does not fear questions, it welcomes them. It waits in silence while your mind struggles, while your certainty shakes. It is not shaken. Blind faith asks you to surrender your eyes, but inner wisdom asks you to open them, wider than ever before. The danger is not in not believing. The danger is in believing without looking, in trusting voices because they're loud, in following paths because they're crowded. But the path of the soul is narrow, silent, personal. No one can walk it for you. No one should. So let the old beliefs crack. Let the borrowed truths fall. Let the silence speak. If your faith cannot withstand your questions, it was never faith. It was conditioning. And Blavatsky, fierce, flawed, on fire, called you not to believe her but to look beyond her, beyond all names, all forms, all systems, until you see for yourself. Because when you see, you no longer believe. You know, if you still think God is out there, maybe you haven't looked deep enough. Not above, not beyond, but within. Not a man in the sky, not a void in the dark, but a silence inside you, waiting. You were taught to reach upward, to pray outward, to seek permission from heavens you've never seen. But what if the temple was never on the mountaintop? What if the altar was always your own awareness? Close your eyes, and you'll see it. Not with sight, but with stillness. Because the divine is not loud. It doesn't shout over the noise. It whispers through presence. Blavatsky did not draw maps. She handed you the compass. She didn't offer belief. She offered remembrance, a sacred rebellion, to awaken from borrowed truths and meet the infinite, not as something separate, but as your own deeper self. You were never meant to worship blindly. You were meant to awaken courageously. To look not just at the stars, but at the stillness behind your thoughts. To wonder not just about God, but to dare ask, what am I truly? Because if even a fragment of this is true, if there is no separation, no division, no boundary between you and the source, then this life, this very moment, is sacred. Every breath is a prayer, every choice a creation, every silence a doorway. So don't wait for heaven. Don't beg for signs. Don't outsource your divinity. Look inward, look honestly, and look again. The question is not whether God exists. The question is, will you remember, subscribe, doubt, reflect, and live as if you were never separate from that?